The Bigfoot file is supposed to be about an animal. Footprints in creek mud, a few seconds of contested film, witnesses describing a large primate crossing a road at dusk. That's the official shape of the story, and it has barely changed in 60 years. But if you sit down and read the reports themselves, hundreds of them, filed across 6 decades and 2 continents, a different detail starts to surface. It arrives before the creature is ever seen. It lingers after the creature is gone. It has nothing to do with any animal in any textbook, and no biologist has ever accounted for it. If you're the kind of viewer who reads the actual reports instead of the headlines written about them, this channel was built for people like you. Worth keeping within reach. The detail is a smell. Witnesses describe it almost word for word, whether the report was filed in Washington State in the 1970s or Ohio in the 2010s. Sulfur, rotten eggs. An odor sharp enough that some witnesses gagged before they saw any movement in the tree line. The Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization has been collecting sighting reports since 1995, and its public database now holds thousands of accounts. The sulfur note runs through them like a watermark. Here's why that should bother you. The human nose detects hydrogen sulfide, the rotten egg compound, at concentrations around half a part per billion. Picture a full tanker truck of milk. 1 drop of ink stirred into it would be roughly twice the concentration you can smell. Now consider what's being proposed. An apex animal that has survived a century of hunters, helicopters, and trail cameras by never being found. Equipped with a built-in alarm, the dullest human nose can detect at half a part per billion. Predators don't advertise. So either the animal is real and the smell is noise, or the smell is real and the animal needs a second look. Start with the foundation, because it's shakier than most people realize. Almost everything we picture when we hear the word Bigfoot comes from one piece of film. Roughly a minute shot by Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin at Bluff Creek, California, on October 20, 1967. The mid-stride glance back, the swinging arms. Something like 90% of all Bigfoot imagery is downstream of that single reel. And so is a surprising amount of the science. Anatomist Jeff Meldrum's case for a flexible mid-tarsal joint in the creature's foot. The most cited biological argument for Sasquatch leans partly on frame-by-frame analysis of that footage, which means the entire undiscovered ape model balances on film that has been contested for almost 60 years and authenticated by no one. Strip the film away, and what's left isn't an ape. What's left is the witnesses, and the witnesses are stranger than the ape. Researchers Joshua Cutchin and Timothy Renner spent years cataloging the parts of Bigfoot reports that get edited out, and the pattern they documented is uncomfortable. A witness is treated as sober and credible while describing a large, upright figure crossing a logging road. And the same witness's account quietly vanishes from consideration when its final line reads, "And then it turned into a ball of light." Those endings exist in the files. Figures that step behind a single tree and are simply gone. Encounters where the forest falls completely silent first. No birds, no insects. As if something switched the woods off. Investigators hunting an ape have no shelf for reports like that, so the reports go nowhere, and the pattern stays invisible. I'll admit, it wasn't the dramatic cases that stopped me when I went through this material. It was the quiet ones, where the witness sounds almost embarrassed to be telling you. That editing. The strangest lines cut, so the story stays an animal story, is exactly the kind of detail that never reaches mainstream coverage. If you want the cases that don't make it there, this is where they get read properly. One click keeps you in the room. Now go back further, because this pattern is older than the word Bigfoot. In 2003, Alaskan wildlife tracker J. Robert Alley published Rain Coast Sasquatch, a collection of encounter accounts from the Pacific Northwest coast. Buried in it is a detail from the indigenous traditions of coastal Alaska. The wild man of the woods offers food to people lost in the forest. The food looks like dried salmon. It is actually tree bark, disguised. Accept it, and you belong to him. You don't come home. 4,000 miles away, in the fairy lore of Ireland and Scotland, the rule is identical and just as specific. In the other world, eat nothing, because the banquet is an illusion. Underneath it is leaves and twigs, and one bite traps you there forever. Two cultures separated by an ocean and by centuries, telling the same precise rule about the same kind of being. There are only three ways to explain that: an unrecorded, ancient exchange of myths between continents, a collective unconscious producing identical details independently, or people in both places accurately describing encounters with the same thing. Choose whichever you can live with. Each one breaks a textbook. The geography repeats too. Cherokee tradition in the American Southeast describes the Nunehi, beings of the forest tied to burial mounds, to travelers losing hours they cannot account for, to people led away into the hills. Across the Atlantic, Irish lore attaches the same claims, missing time and abduction into the landscape, to its own burial mounds, and modern sighting reports cluster in the same kind of terrain: ridgelines, riverbanks, the edge of town where the streetlights end, thresholds. Even the odor fits a longer record than ufology or cryptozoology admits. European accounts spent centuries marking encounters with the other world by the smell of brimstone, long before anyone had a name for hydrogen sulfide. So set the scene one more time, the way it appears in report after report in those files. A logging road in the Pacific Northwest, an hour before dark. A man who has hunted these woods for 30 years stops walking because everything has gone quiet at once. Then movement, something upright and impossibly broad, watching him from between two cedars, close enough that he can see it breathing. He looks away for 1 second, at his rifle, at his radio. When he looks back, there is nothing. No crash of retreat through the brush, no snapped branches. And when he forces himself to walk to the spot, he finds two enormous footprints pressed deep into the mud. Two, nothing leading in, nothing leading out. That is what remains on the table when the famous film is set aside. A century of witnesses, separated by oceans and generations, independently reporting the same smell, the same silences, the same impossible exits, and a research community that keeps filing the inconvenient half of every report in a drawer no one opens. New reports are still being added to the public databases every month, and the strange details keep arriving with them, unchanged.